Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I stared at the hospital paperwork in disbelief, the words blurring through my pain medication haze. Legal guardian, Dr. Samuel Hartman. My hands trembled as I read it again. 3 days ago, I was Reed Thompson, high school senior with a bright future. Now, I was an 18-year-old orphan, whose mother had abandoned me to die. Her voice still echoed in my ears. If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork. But who was this Dr. Hartman? And why had this stranger cared more about saving my life than my own family? The morning of the Thompson family reunion started like every other year, since I could remember. Uncle Frank's lakefront property in northern Michigan sparkled under the August sun, with 3 generations of our family gathering for the annual tradition that supposedly brought us all together. I drove up from Detroit with my mother Carol and my sister Madison, my beat-up Honda Civic packed tight with folding chairs and covered dishes. At 18, I felt different this year. High school graduation was behind me, and Northwestern University acceptance letter sat framed in my bedroom back home. I had worked 4 jobs during senior year to save money for college, knowing Carol's real estate business struggled to pay our basic bills. The reunion felt like my last chance to share good news with extended family before starting my adult life. Carol spent the entire 2-hour drive on her phone, managing what she called urgent client emergencies. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, designer sunglasses hiding eyes that rarely looked directly at anyone these days. She wore a white linen suit that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, purchased with money from sources I never understood. "Reed, pull over at that gas station," she commanded without looking up from her screen. "Madison needs to touch up her makeup before we arrive. These photos are going on her Instagram, and everything needs to look perfect." Madison, 21, and completely absorbed in her social media career, spent the stop rearranging her carefully curled brown hair and adjusting her pink sundress. She had gained thousands of followers by posting about our perfect family life, though she barely acknowledged my existence unless I appeared useful for content creation. "Make sure you stay out of the background shots today," Madison instructed me while applying lip gloss. "Your scholarship boy aesthetic doesn't match my brand image." I nodded and focused on pumping gas, accustomed to being treated like hired help rather than her younger brother. The reunion represented my opportunity to connect with family members who might actually care about my achievements and college plans. Uncle Frank greeted us with genuine warmth when we arrived at his sprawling log cabin home. His property stretched across 2 acres of pristine lakefront, with wooden docks extending into crystal-clear water. Frank owned a successful construction company, and had always been the family's steady, reliable presence. "Reed, look at you, all grown up and ready for college." Frank embraced me with strong, calloused hands that smelled like pine and honest work. "Dr. Hartman is here today. He's been asking about your plans for Northwestern. That man knows everyone in Chicago from his consulting work." Dr. Samuel Hartman stood near the barbecue pit, a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and kind brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He worked as a forensic psychiatrist and served as Frank's business partner in several real estate investments. Over the years, he had always shown genuine interest in my academic progress, asking thoughtful questions about my studies and future goals. "Reed, congratulations on Northwestern," Dr. Hartman approached with a warm smile. "Frank tells me you're planning to study pre-law. That's excellent preparation for someone with your analytical mind." We spent 20 minutes discussing my college courses, internship opportunities, and career aspirations. Dr. Hartman listened intently, offering practical advice about legal studies and professional networking. His attention felt foreign after years of Carol's distracted responses to my achievements. The afternoon unfolded with typical reunion activities. Carol networked aggressively with successful relatives, hoping to generate real estate referrals. Madison posed for countless photos, directing family members like props in her content creation. I helped Uncle Frank with food preparation and enjoyed conversations with cousins, aunts, and uncles who remembered my academic accomplishments. As evening approached, Frank realized he had forgotten to buy ice cream for dessert. The nearest grocery store sat 25 minutes away in the small lakeside town, and most guests were settling in for the night. "I'll drive into town," I volunteered, eager to help and enjoy some quiet time after the busy social day. "Take my pickup." Frank tossed me keys to his blue Ford F-150. "The road can be tricky at night, but you've driven it before." The country road wound through dense Michigan forests, with tall pine trees creating natural tunnels over the asphalt. I felt peaceful and optimistic, thinking about my upcoming freshman year and the opportunities ahead. The radio played classic rock softly as I planned conversations with college roommates and professors. Downtown consisted of a single main street with a small grocery store, gas station, and diner that catered to tourists and locals. I purchased 3 containers of vanilla ice cream and started the return journey, anticipating the family's gratitude for solving Frank's dessert crisis. The intersection of County Road 12 and Maple Street had a 4-way stop that I had navigated countless times during previous visits. I approached slowly, checking for oncoming traffic from all directions. The night was clear, visibility was perfect, and I felt confident and alert. I never saw the drunk driver who ran the stop sign at 50 miles per hour. The impact sent Frank's pickup spinning sideways before slamming into a concrete utility pole. The truck rolled twice, crushing the roof and shattering every window. I felt my body thrown against the steering wheel. Then darkness consumed everything. When consciousness flickered back, I lay trapped upside down, warm liquid flowing down my face. The metallic taste in my mouth told me it was blood. Pain radiated through my chest and abdomen like fire, spreading through dry wood. My left leg was pinned under twisted metal, completely numb from the knee down. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as emergency vehicles approached the scene. Red and blue lights painted the surrounding trees like some twisted holiday decoration. I tried to call out, but managed only weak whispers. "We've got a young male, approximately 18, trapped inside the vehicle," a paramedic's voice carried clearly through the night air. "Significant head trauma, possible internal bleeding, multiple fractures. We need the jaws of life to extract him safely." The extraction took 45 minutes that felt like hours. Every movement sent lightning bolts of agony through my broken body. The paramedics worked carefully but urgently, discussing my critical condition in medical terminology I couldn't fully understand. "Blood pressure is dropping," one medic reported. "We need to get him to County General immediately. This kid needs surgery, and he needs it tonight." The ambulance ride to the hospital passed in a haze of pain medication and flickering consciousness. I heard radio chatter between the paramedics and emergency room staff, coordinating my arrival and surgical preparation. The seriousness in their voices told me everything I needed to know about my condition. Back at the reunion, the family continued their evening celebrations, unaware that I lay fighting for my life 40 minutes away. Carol and Madison were too busy with their social activities to notice my absence. The ice cream I had purchased melted in the wreckage, a small symbol of how quickly everything had changed. The emergency room at County General Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos as medical staff prepared for my arrival. Dr. Patricia Wells, the trauma surgeon on duty, reviewed my vital signs and injury reports while nurses set up surgical equipment. My internal bleeding was severe, and every minute of delay increased the risk of permanent damage or death. The hospital's protocol required family consent for emergency surgery on patients under 21. Despite my legal adult status at 18, my critical condition and altered mental state meant medical staff needed to contact my emergency contacts before proceeding with life-saving procedures. "We need to reach his mother immediately," Dr. Wells instructed the hospital administrator. "This young man has internal bleeding that requires surgical intervention within the next 2 hours or we're going to lose him." The first challenge was locating Carol, who had mentioned spending the weekend at an exclusive spa resort 2 hours south of Uncle Frank's property. Madison had posted Instagram stories throughout the day showing their girls' weekend at the luxury retreat, complete with mud baths, massage treatments, and champagne service. Multiple phone calls to the spa's main number went unanswered, as the facility prided itself on providing guests with complete digital detoxification during their stay. Staff members eventually reached the resort manager, who reluctantly agreed to interrupt my family's treatments for the medical emergency. Dr. Wells paced the hallway outside my room, checking her watch every few minutes as my condition deteriorated. The surgical team stood ready, but legal protocols prevented them from proceeding without family authorization. "Doctor, we have the patient's mother on the line," a nurse announced, holding the phone with visible relief. Dr. Wells took the call, expecting to hear parental concern and immediate authorization for surgery. Instead, Carol's voice carried clear irritation at being disturbed during her expensive spa weekend. "This better be important," Carol's voice echoed through the phone's speaker. "We paid $3,000 for this wellness package, and I specifically requested no interruptions. Miss Thompson, this is Dr. Wells at County General Hospital. Your son Reed was involved in a serious automobile accident this evening. He has internal bleeding and requires immediate emergency surgery to save his life." A long pause followed, filled only by background sounds of spa music and water features. When Carol finally responded, her tone suggested mild annoyance rather than maternal panic. "How serious are we talking here? Like, is this something that can wait until Monday? We have appointments scheduled through Sunday afternoon." Dr. Wells struggled to maintain professional composure while explaining the gravity of my condition. "Miss Thompson, your son could die without immediate surgical intervention. We're talking about multiple organ damage, internal hemorrhaging, and potential brain trauma. This cannot wait. Look, doctor." Carol's voice carried the same tone she used when negotiating real estate deals. "Reed is 18 now, right? That makes him legally an adult. Why are you calling me about his medical decisions? While your son is technically an adult, his current condition prevents him from making informed medical decisions. As his closest family member, we need your authorization to proceed with surgery." Madison's voice could be heard clearly in the background. "Mom, tell them we'll handle this on Monday. This seaweed wrap costs $300, and my skin is finally starting to respond to the treatment." Dr. Wells felt her professional mask slipping as she processed the family's response to their son's life-threatening crisis. "Miss Thompson, I need to be absolutely clear. Your son may not survive until Monday without immediate surgical intervention." Carol sighed heavily, as if being asked to solve a minor inconvenience. "Honestly, doctor, if Reed dies, just let me know, and I'll handle the paperwork later. I'm not driving 2 hours to sign forms for something that might not even matter. Do whatever's cheapest, but don't expect me to be involved in the decision-making process." The line went quiet for several seconds, as Dr. Wells absorbed the shocking response. She had delivered difficult news to thousands of families over her 20-year career, but never encountered such callous indifference to a child's survival. "Miss Thompson, did I understand correctly that you're refusing to authorize life-saving surgery for your 18-year-old son?" "I'm not refusing anything," Carol replied with cold precision. "I'm simply stating that Reed is now legally responsible for his own medical decisions. If he can't make those decisions, that's not my problem anymore. We've moved beyond the parental responsibility phase of our relationship." Dr. Wells ended the call and immediately consulted with the hospital's legal department about proceeding without family consent. The legal complexities of treating a critically injured adult whose family had essentially abandoned him created unprecedented challenges. While medical staff debated legal options, Dr. Samuel Hartman arrived at the hospital. He had been driving back to Chicago from the reunion when he heard emergency radio chatter about the accident scene. Frank had called him when they realized I was missing, and Frank's description of the crash location matched the emergency radio reports. "Doctor, I'm Samuel Hartman." He approached the nursing station with obvious concern. "I understand Reed Thompson was brought here tonight. I'm a close family friend, and I'd like to know about his condition." Dr. Wells explained my critical injuries and the urgent need for surgery. She also shared, in carefully professional language, the family's response to the emergency situation. His mother refused to authorize surgery? Dr. Hartman's voice reflected the disbelief that Dr. Wells had felt during the phone conversation. She stated that since he's 18, his medical decisions are no longer her responsibility. She explicitly told us that if he dies, she wants to be notified for paperwork purposes only. Dr. Hartman stood silent for a long moment, processing the cruelty of Carol's abandonment. As a forensic psychiatrist, he had evaluated countless cases of family dysfunction, but the calculated coldness of leaving an 18-year-old to die exceeded his professional experience. Doctor, what legal options exist for authorizing surgery when family refuses to help? Dr. Wells explained the complex process of emergency guardianship petitions, but emphasized that such procedures typically took several days to complete. I didn't have several days to wait for legal resolution. There is one possibility. The hospital's legal counsel joined the conversation. If someone petitions for emergency guardianship and demonstrates immediate medical necessity, a judge can grant temporary authority within hours. Dr. Hartman made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I'll petition for emergency guardianship. Reed needs surgery, and someone needs to advocate for his welfare. While I lay unconscious, fighting for survival, Dr. Hartman spent the night working with hospital attorneys to file emergency guardianship papers. His petition detailed my critical condition, my family's abandonment, and his willingness to assume legal responsibility for my medical decisions. The paperwork revealed devastating information about Carol's recent legal activities. Investigation showed that she had filed emancipation papers for me just 2 days earlier, effective immediately upon my 18th birthday. Her abandonment at the hospital wasn't spontaneous cruelty. It was calculated legal strategy designed to eliminate her parental responsibilities while maintaining control of my finances. Dr. Hartman's emergency petition succeeded. A family court judge, horrified by the circumstances, granted temporary guardianship at 3 o'clock in the morning. The surgical team, who had been standing ready for hours, finally received authorization to save my life. The 6-hour surgery addressed internal bleeding, repaired organ damage, and stabilized my critical condition. Dr. Wells later told Dr. Hartman that another hour of delay would likely have resulted in my death. While surgeons worked to rebuild my broken body, Dr. Hartman sat in the hospital waiting room, grappling with the legal and emotional implications of becoming guardian to his best friend's son. He had made a promise decades earlier, and circumstances had finally required him to honor that commitment. Consciousness returned slowly, like emerging from underwater in complete darkness. First came the awareness of pain, deep, throbbing discomfort that seemed to emanate from every part of my body. Then came the sounds. Steady beeping of medical monitors, soft footsteps in hospital corridors, and the quiet murmur of nursing staff conducting their rounds. I tried to open my eyes, but the bright fluorescent lights created stabbing headaches that forced me to squint. My mouth felt like cotton, and my throat burned when I attempted to swallow. Every small movement sent waves of agony through my chest and abdomen, reminding me of the surgery I had endured. Easy, Reed. Don't try to move too quickly. The voice belonged to a man, but not someone from my immediate family. I forced my eyes open and saw Dr. Hartman sitting in a chair beside my hospital bed, reading a medical journal with the patient attention of someone who had been waiting for quite some time. Dr. Hartman? My voice came out as a hoarse whisper, barely audible above the medical equipment's constant humming. Yes, Reed. I'm here. He folded the journal and leaned forward with genuine concern in his brown eyes. How are you feeling? The nurses said you might experience significant pain as the anesthesia wears off. I looked around the hospital room, noting the absence of flowers, cards, or any signs of family visitors. The space felt sterile and lonely, furnished only with medical equipment and Dr. Hartman's presence. Where is everyone? Where are Carol and Madison? I struggled to piece together fragments of memory from the night of the accident. Dr. Hartman's expression grew somber, and he moved his chair closer to my bedside. Reed, we need to have a difficult conversation about what happened after your accident. Are you feeling alert enough to understand some complicated information? I nodded, though movement created sharp pains in my neck and shoulders. I remember driving to get ice cream for Uncle Frank. Then there was a crash, and everything went dark. How long have I been here? 3 days. You've been unconscious since the surgery on Friday night. Today is Monday morning. Doctor Hartman spoke gently but directly, preparing me for information that would fundamentally change my understanding of my family relationships. Surgery? What kind of surgery? Panic began building in my chest as I realized the severity of my injuries. You had internal bleeding from the accident, Reed. Several organs were damaged, and you lost a significant amount of blood. Dr. Wells, the trauma surgeon, said you would have died without immediate surgical intervention. The reality of nearly dying at 18 felt surreal and terrifying. I had been planning my college freshman year just days earlier, and now I was learning about life-threatening injuries and emergency surgery. Why didn't Carol come to the hospital? Where has my family been for 3 days? Dr. Hartman took a deep breath and pulled his chair even closer to my bed. Reed, your mother and sister were contacted about your accident and the need for emergency surgery. Their response was unexpected. He explained Carol's phone conversation with Dr. Wells, including her explicit statement about not wanting to be involved if I died, and her instructions to do whatever's cheapest. The words felt like physical blows, each revelation more devastating than the last. She said that? She actually said, if I die, just let her know for paperwork? My voice cracked with disbelief and pain that had nothing to do with my physical injuries. I'm afraid so. The hospital staff were as shocked as you are now. No one expected a mother's response to be so detached. Dr. Hartman reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a folder containing legal documents. Reed, there's more you need to understand about your current situation. He showed me papers labeled Emergency Guardianship Petition with my name and his name clearly visible in the legal text. Because your mother refused to authorize surgery and essentially abandoned her parental responsibilities, I petitioned the court for emergency guardianship. A judge granted my request, which allowed the hospital to proceed with surgery and save your life. I stared at the documents, trying to process the legal implications of what he was explaining. You're my guardian now? Not Carol? That's correct. The emergency guardianship is temporary, but it means I'm legally responsible for your medical decisions and general welfare while you recover. The weight of abandonment by my own mother began settling over me like a heavy blanket. She had literally chosen spa treatments over my survival, prioritizing her own comfort over my life or death medical emergency. Dr. Hartman, I don't understand why you did this. Why would you get involved in our family problems? Dr. Hartman leaned back in his chair, his expression becoming thoughtful and somewhat distant. Reed, my relationship with your family goes back much further than you realize. I wasn't just Uncle Frank's business partner, who happened to show interest in your education. He explained that he had been my father's closest friend during their college years at the University of Michigan. They had served as each other's best men at their weddings, and Dr. Hartman was actually my godfather, though Carol had never maintained that relationship after my father's military death when I was 2 years old. Your father, David, was one of the finest men I've ever known. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan as a combat medic, saving lives under incredibly dangerous conditions. He died when his medical convoy hit an improvised explosive device while responding to wounded soldiers. This information about my father felt like discovering a hidden family history. Carol had always been vague about his military service, providing minimal details about his death, and avoiding conversations about his character or accomplishments. David made me promise that if anything ever happened to him, I would look after his family. Over the years, I've watched Carol become increasingly self-centered and materialistic. I've seen how she treats you more like an inconvenience than a son. When she abandoned you in the hospital, I realized it was time to honor my promise to your father. The emotional revelation about my father's heroism and Dr. Hartman's loyalty created a strange mixture of pride and grief. Learning that someone had cared enough about my welfare to make such a significant legal commitment felt overwhelming after years of feeling invisible within my own family. There's one more thing you need to know, Reed. It's about your father's military benefits and life insurance. Dr. Hartman's tone became serious and businesslike. He explained that my father had left a substantial life insurance policy through the Department of Veterans Affairs, totaling over $400,000, intended to provide for my education and early adult years. Carol had been managing these funds as my legal guardian, with the money held in trust until I turned 21. However, there's an important clause in the policy. If you become emancipated or gain a new guardian before age 21, the money transfers directly to you or your new guardian for your benefit. Your mother's abandonment has triggered that clause. The financial implications began crystallizing as Dr. Hartman continued explaining the legal situation. Reed, I believe your mother's decision to abandon you wasn't just about avoiding responsibility. I think she discovered this clause and calculated that if she could maintain technical control of your inheritance while avoiding the actual work of being your guardian, she could continue accessing your money without the legal obligations. She didn't expect someone else to step in as guardian. Her plan backfired because now the money will transfer to your new legal guardian, me, and I'll manage it exclusively for your benefit and education. The realization that Carol had attempted to manipulate legal technicalities to steal my inheritance while abandoning me to die represented a level of betrayal I couldn't fully comprehend. The woman who was supposed to protect me had calculated how to profit from my potential death. Dr. Hartman continued with more devastating information. Reed, I've started investigating how your mother has managed your inheritance over the years. The initial audit shows some very concerning patterns of spending that don't seem related to your care or education. As I lay in that hospital bed, surrounded by the beeping of life support monitors, I began understanding that my near-death experience had actually revealed the truth about my family and saved me from years of continued financial and emotional abuse. The accident that nearly killed me had also set me free. Recovery from major surgery required patience I didn't know I possessed. Physical therapy began the morning after I regained consciousness, with nurses helping me sit up in bed without triggering intense abdominal pain. Simple movements like raising my arms or turning my head reminded me how close I had come to dying. Dr. Hartman visited twice daily, bringing books, newspapers, and updates about my legal situation. His presence provided stability during the most vulnerable period of my life, and I began understanding why my father had chosen him as my godfather. Reed, I need to share some troubling discoveries about your inheritance management, Dr. Hartman announced during his Thursday morning visit. He carried a thick folder filled with bank statements, receipts, and financial documents. As your new legal guardian, I have access to all accounts related to your father's life insurance policy. What I've found suggests systematic financial abuse dating back several years. Dr. Hartman spread the documents across the hospital bed's adjustable table, organizing them chronologically to show patterns of suspicious spending. The evidence painted a disturbing picture of Carol's financial management. Your father's policy provided $412,000 in life insurance benefits, plus ongoing education allowances through the GI Bill. Over 16 years, this money was supposed to grow with conservative investments to fund your college education and early adult expenses. He pointed to bank statements showing the account's current balance, less than $180,000. More than half of my inheritance had disappeared over the years, with withdrawals labeled as administrative fees, emergency family expenses, and educational support. Reed, look at these expenditures from the past 3 years alone. Dr. Hartman highlighted specific transactions that revealed the scope of Carol's theft. $28,000 for Madison's BMW, listed as transportation for family medical appointments. $15,000 for Carol's kitchen renovation, labeled home improvements for dependent child welfare. $12,000 for spa treatments and luxury vacations, documented as stress management therapy for single mother. The pattern continued across dozens of transactions. Designer clothing purchases listed as professional wardrobe for dependent care, expensive restaurant bills labeled as nutrition therapy, and luxury items categorized as household necessities for child development. She's been stealing from me for years, I whispered, staring at evidence of systematic theft by my own mother. It gets worse, Reed. These records show that Carol has been taking monthly administrative fees of $800 for managing your account. There's no legal basis for such fees, and the amounts have increased every year. Dr. Hartman showed me additional documentation revealing Carol's business financial problems. Her real estate company had been losing money for 5 years, with multiple clients filing complaints about unprofessional service and missed deadlines. She had been using my inheritance to prop up her failing business while maintaining an expensive lifestyle. Madison's social media career has also been funded entirely with your money. Look at these expenses: professional photography sessions, designer clothes for content creation, social media marketing services, and travel expenses for influencer events. The betrayal felt deeper with each revelation. My family hadn't just abandoned me during a medical emergency. They had been systematically stealing my future for years while pretending to care about my welfare. Dr. Hartman, can we get this money back? Is there legal recourse for what they've done? Absolutely. What Carol has done constitutes theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. We'll be filing both civil and criminal complaints against her. The evidence is overwhelming and well documented. Dr. Hartman explained that his forensic background had taught him how to build airtight financial cases. Carol's sloppy record-keeping and blatant misuse of funds would make prosecution straightforward. There's something else, Reed. Something even more calculated and cruel. Dr. Hartman's voice carried anger that I had never heard from him before. He showed me medical records that Carol had been providing to insurance companies and healthcare providers since I turned 16. According to her documentation, I suffered from behavioral disorders, emotional instability, and learning disabilities that required ongoing psychiatric medication and therapy. Reed, have you ever been prescribed psychiatric medication or received therapy for behavioral problems? No, never. I've never even talked to a therapist or psychiatrist except for college counseling about career planning. Dr. Hartman pointed to insurance reimbursement records showing thousands of dollars in payments for medications I had never received and therapy sessions I had never attended. Carol had been filing false insurance claims and pocketing the money while building a fabricated medical history that portrayed me as mentally unstable. She was creating documentation to support future claims that you were incompetent to manage your own finances. If this pattern continued, she could have petitioned the court to extend her guardianship indefinitely, claiming you were mentally incapable of handling your inheritance. The sophistication of Carol's fraud scheme shocked me. She hadn't just stolen money. She had been systematically destroying my reputation and mental health records to justify continued financial control. Dr. Hartman, what would have happened if I hadn't been in the accident? Would she have succeeded in keeping control of my money forever? Quite possibly. She was building a case to have you declared legally incompetent based on fabricated psychiatric records. With enough false documentation, she could have convinced a court that you needed permanent financial supervision. The accident that nearly killed me had actually saved me from a lifetime of financial servitude to my own mother. Her plan to abandon me at the hospital had backfired spectacularly, exposing years of fraud and abuse. Dr. Hartman collected the financial documents and prepared to leave for a meeting with prosecutors. Reed, I want you to understand that recovering from this betrayal will take time, just like recovering from your physical injuries. What your mother did was calculated, cruel, and criminal. But you're going to survive this, and you're going to build a better life than she ever allowed you to imagine. As I lay alone in the hospital room, processing the magnitude of Carol's betrayal, I felt something unexpected: relief. The truth was devastating, but it was also liberating. For the first time in my life, I understood why I had always felt like an outsider in my own family. I wasn't crazy or ungrateful. I was the victim of systematic emotional and financial abuse. The accident had shattered my body, but revealed the truth about my life. Sometimes, I realized, the most painful experiences contain the seeds of your salvation. Physical therapy became my daily routine as my body slowly healed from the trauma of the accident and surgery. Walking short distances down hospital corridors required tremendous effort, but each step represented progress toward independence. Dr. Hartman arranged for private physical therapy sessions to accelerate my recovery, knowing that my emotional healing depended partly on regaining physical strength. During the second week of my hospitalization, Dr. Hartman arrived with a team of legal professionals who would help build the case against Carol. The lead attorney, Jennifer Walsh, specialized in financial elder abuse and family fraud cases. "Reed, we're going to document every aspect of your mother's financial misconduct," Jennifer explained during our first meeting. Dr. Hartman's initial investigation revealed systematic theft, but we need to build a comprehensive case that will ensure full accountability. The legal team had subpoenaed bank records, insurance claims, and business documents related to Carol's management of my inheritance. They also requested my complete medical records to contrast Carol's false claims with my actual health history. "Your case is particularly compelling because the fraud was committed against a military survivor's benefits," Jennifer continued. "Federal prosecutors take these cases very seriously, especially when they involve orphaned children of service members." During my third week in the hospital, we received an unexpected visit from my high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Patricia Anderson. She had learned about my accident through Uncle Frank and wanted to provide testimony about Carol's lack of involvement in my education. "Reed, I'm so sorry about what happened to you," Mrs. Anderson sat beside my bed with genuine concern. "I've been thinking about your family situation, and I realized there were warning signs I should have reported years ago." She explained that Carol had consistently failed to attend parent-teacher conferences, refused to sign permission slips for advanced placement courses, and showed no interest in my academic achievements. When I applied for early admission to Northwestern, Mrs. Anderson had to make multiple phone calls before Carol would even acknowledge the application paperwork. "Your mother actually told me that she didn't want you taking advanced courses because they would make you too ambitious for your family's financial situation. She said college was a waste of money for someone from your background." Mrs. Anderson's testimony revealed a pattern of educational sabotage designed to keep me dependent and limit my future opportunities. Carol had been actively working to prevent my academic success while stealing the money meant to fund my education. Dr. Hartman, Mrs. Anderson's testimony supports our theory that Carol was systematically limiting Reed's opportunities to maintain control over his inheritance, Jennifer Walsh noted during our legal strategy meeting. Additional witnesses came forward during my recovery. Uncle Frank provided financial records showing loans that Carol had requested over the years, claiming she needed money for my special medical needs and educational support. Frank had unknowingly been helping Carol steal from me by providing additional funds based on fabricated emergencies. "I feel terrible, Reed," Frank apologized during one of his daily visits. "She convinced me you had learning disabilities that required expensive tutoring and medical care. I gave her thousands of dollars over the years, thinking I was helping you succeed in school." Dr. Hartman arranged for several of my teachers to provide written testimony about my academic performance and behavior. Their statements consistently described me as a motivated, well-behaved student with no signs of the behavioral or learning problems that Carol had documented in her false medical claims. "Reed has always been one of our most responsible and academically gifted students," wrote Mr. James Crawford, my senior year advanced placement history teacher. "He worked multiple jobs to save money for college while maintaining a 4.0 grade average. His mother never attended a single school event or showed interest in his remarkable achievements. Northwestern University's admissions office learned about my situation and sent a representative to the hospital. Dean Margaret Foster assured me that my acceptance and scholarship would be held regardless of legal proceedings, and the university would provide additional support services for students who had experienced family trauma. Reed, Northwestern has programs specifically designed to help students who have overcome significant personal adversity, Dean Foster explained. Your academic record and personal resilience make you exactly the kind of student we want to support. The legal case expanded as investigators discovered additional evidence of Carol's fraud. She had been using my Social Security number to open credit card accounts, taking out loans in my name, and even filing tax returns that claimed fraudulent deductions for my medical expenses and educational costs. Carol has committed identity theft on a massive scale, Jennifer Walsh announced during our weekly legal meeting. She's destroyed your credit rating before you even graduated high school, and she's been committing tax fraud using your personal information. Dr. Hartman arranged for credit reports that showed the full extent of Carol's identity theft. Multiple credit cards had been opened in my name, with balances totaling over $30,000. Loan applications showed that Carol had been using my identity to borrow money for her failing real estate business. Read, the good news is that as a victim of identity theft, you won't be held responsible for these debts, Jennifer explained. But the criminal charges against your mother will include federal offenses that carry significant prison sentences. During my 4th week in the hospital, we received devastating information about Carol's future plans for my inheritance. Dr. Hartman's investigation revealed that Carol had been consulting with attorneys about having me declared mentally incompetent based on her fabricated medical records. She had scheduled a competency hearing for the week after the family reunion, Jennifer revealed with barely controlled anger. Carol was planning to have you institutionalized and take permanent control of your finances. The competency petition that Carol had been preparing included false statements about my mental health, fabricated incidents of violent behavior, and forged medical opinions from doctors who had never actually examined me. The document painted me as a dangerous, unstable young man who needed institutional care and could never manage financial responsibilities. Dr. Hartman, if Reed hadn't been in the accident, would this plan have succeeded? Quite possibly. Carol had been building false documentation for years, and the legal system sometimes accepts parental claims about adult children's mental health without sufficient investigation. The accident that nearly killed me had accidentally saved me from a lifetime of institutional imprisonment based on my mother's lies. Her plan to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized represented the ultimate betrayal. She was willing to destroy my entire future to maintain access to my father's money. As my physical strength returned, my emotional resolve strengthened as well. Carol's systematic abuse had lasted my entire life, but it was ending now. The legal team had built an overwhelming case against her, and justice was finally within reach. Reed, you're going to testify in court about what your mother did to you, Jennifer Walsh explained during our final preparation meeting. Your testimony will be the most powerful evidence we present. Are you prepared to face her and tell the truth about how she treated you? I looked around the hospital room that had become my sanctuary, thinking about my father's sacrifice, Dr. Hartman's loyalty, and my own survival against impossible odds. Yes, I'm ready to face her. She tried to destroy me, but she failed. Now it's time for her to face the consequences of what she's done. The family court hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in early October, 6 weeks after my accident. I had been discharged from the hospital, but still moved carefully due to lingering soreness from my injuries. Dr. Hartman arranged for physical therapy sessions and psychological counseling to help me prepare for the emotional challenge of facing Carol in court. Reed, remember that you're not just testifying for yourself, Dr. Hartman reminded me as we drove to the courthouse. You're representing every young person who has been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect them. Your courage today might inspire changes in how the legal system protects vulnerable adults. The courthouse appeared imposing and formal, with marble columns and high ceilings that echoed every footstep. Jennifer Walsh met us at the security entrance, carrying boxes of evidence and financial documents that would expose Carol's years of fraud and abuse. How are you feeling, Reed? Jennifer asked as we rode the elevator to the family court floor. Nervous, but determined, I replied honestly. I've been waiting my whole life to tell someone the truth about how she treated me. The courtroom was smaller than I had expected, with wooden benches arranged theater-style facing the judge's elevated desk. Carol and Madison sat at the defendant's table with their attorney, a young man who looked overwhelmed by the evidence stacked against his clients. Carol wore an expensive navy blue suit that I recognized as one of her recent purchases, paid for with money stolen from my inheritance. Her blonde hair was styled professionally, and she had applied makeup carefully to project an image of respectability and competence. Madison sat beside her mother, wearing a pink dress that had appeared in several recent Instagram posts. She avoided making eye contact with me, focusing instead on her phone screen, even though electronics weren't supposed to be used during court proceedings. Judge Robert Martinez called the hearing to order and reviewed the complex legal situation that had brought us together. This case involves allegations of financial abuse, medical fraud, identity theft, and abandonment of a dependent adult during a medical emergency. These are serious charges that could result in significant criminal penalties. Jennifer Walsh presented the opening arguments, outlining Carol's systematic theft of my inheritance and her abandonment during my medical crisis. She described the evidence of false medical claims, identity theft, and plans to have me declared incompetent for financial gain. Your Honor, this case represents one of the most calculated and cruel examples of family financial abuse that I have encountered in 15 years of practice. The defendant systematically stole from her own son while planning to destroy his future for monetary gain. Carol's attorney attempted to portray her as a struggling single mother who had made poor financial decisions under stress. He argued that Carol's absence during my medical emergency was due to poor communication rather than deliberate abandonment. Your Honor, my client Carol Thompson raised her son as a single mother after her husband's military death. She made mistakes in managing his inheritance, but these were errors in judgment rather than intentional fraud. The attorney's defense strategy quickly collapsed as Jennifer Walsh presented overwhelming evidence of Carol's calculated fraud. Bank records, false insurance claims, and forged medical documents created an undeniable pattern of systematic theft and deception. Your Honor, I'd like to present testimony from the defendant's son, Reed Thompson, about his experiences with family financial abuse and medical abandonment. I walked slowly to the witness stand, still feeling physical discomfort from my injuries but determined to tell my story completely and honestly. Carol's attorney objected to my testimony on grounds that I was an interested party whose statements might be biased, but Judge Martinez ruled that my direct experience was essential evidence. Reed, please tell the court about your relationship with your mother and your understanding of your father's life insurance benefits. Jennifer Walsh began her questioning. I described years of feeling like an outsider in my own family, Carol's constant focus on money and appearances, and my gradual realization that something was wrong with our financial situation. I explained working multiple jobs to save money for college while believing that my father's benefits weren't sufficient to help with educational expenses. Reed, please describe what happened on the night of your accident and your family's response to your medical emergency. The courtroom was completely silent as I recounted the crash, waking up in the hospital, and learning about Carol's response to my need for emergency surgery. Several people in the courtroom gasped audibly when I repeated Carol's exact words, "If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork." Your Honor, the defendant's response to her son's life-threatening medical emergency demonstrates a complete abandonment of parental responsibility and basic human decency, Jennifer Walsh emphasized after my testimony. Carol's attorney attempted cross-examination, suggesting that I was exaggerating my mother's callousness and that family relationships are often misunderstood by young adults. His questions became increasingly desperate as he realized that my testimony was calm, detailed, and completely credible. Reed, isn't it true that your mother has always worked hard to provide for your needs? Sir, the evidence shows that my mother worked hard to steal money that my father died trying to provide for my future. She didn't work to meet my needs. She worked to meet her own needs using money that didn't belong to her. Dr. Hartman testified about his investigation of Carol's financial management, detailing the systematic theft and fraud that had reduced my inheritance by more than half. He explained Carol's plans to have me declared incompetent and potentially institutionalized to maintain permanent access to my father's benefits. Your Honor, the defendant's actions represent a comprehensive attack on her son's mental health, financial security, and personal autonomy. She was willing to destroy his entire future for monetary gain. The court heard testimony from Uncle Frank, my high school counselor, and several teachers who documented Carol's lack of involvement in my life and education. Northwestern University's representative testified about my academic achievements and potential, emphasizing how Carol's financial theft had jeopardized my educational opportunities. When Carol finally took the witness stand, her testimony was defensive and contradictory. She claimed that managing my inheritance had been burdensome and that she deserved compensation for her sacrifice. She portrayed herself as a victim of my ingratitude and Dr. Hartman's manipulation. Your Honor, I've dedicated my life to raising Reed after his father's death. Every decision I made was intended to provide for his welfare and security. Jennifer Walsh's cross-examination systematically destroyed Carol's credibility. Confronted with bank records, false insurance claims, and evidence of identity theft, Carol's explanations became increasingly implausible and desperate. "Miss Thompson, can you explain why you listed your son's BMW as a medical transportation necessity when claiming reimbursement from his inheritance?" Madison needed reliable transportation to drive Reed to medical appointments. "Miss Thompson, do you have any documentation of these medical appointments that required a $28,000 luxury vehicle?" Carol's inability to provide coherent explanations for her financial theft created a devastating impression. When Jennifer Walsh confronted her with the false medical records and plans for competency hearings, Carol's composure completely collapsed. "Miss Thompson, did you plan to have your son declared mentally incompetent so you could maintain permanent control of his inheritance? I was protecting him from making poor financial decisions. Young people don't understand the value of money. Miss Thompson, did you fabricate medical records and psychiatric evaluations to support your competency petition?" Carol's attorney objected repeatedly, but the evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The fabricated medical records, false insurance claims, and planned competency hearing created a picture of calculated cruelty that shocked everyone in the courtroom. Judge Martinez recessed the hearing to review the extensive evidence. When court reconvened, his ruling was swift and comprehensive. "After reviewing all evidence and testimony, I find that Carol Thompson has committed systematic financial abuse, medical fraud, identity theft, and child endangerment. Her actions represent a complete betrayal of parental responsibility and basic human decency." The judge granted permanent guardianship to Dr. Hartman and ordered immediate restitution of all stolen funds with interest and penalties. Criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion would be filed separately in federal court. "Miss Thompson, your treatment of your son represents one of the most calculated examples of family abuse I have encountered in 20 years on the bench. You stole his inheritance, destroyed his credit, fabricated medical records, and abandoned him during a life-threatening medical emergency. The court finds your conduct reprehensible and criminal." As court officers escorted Carol away to process the criminal charges, she turned toward me with unconcealed hatred. "You ungrateful little brat! After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" I looked directly at her for the first time during the entire hearing. "Mom, the only thing you ever did for me was try to destroy my future. Thank you for finally showing everyone who you really are." Madison left the courtroom without speaking to anyone. Her social media career effectively ended by the public exposure of her role in stealing from her brother's inheritance. As we walked out of the courthouse, Dr. Hartman put his hand on my shoulder. "Reed, your father would be proud of your courage today. You stood up for yourself and for every young person who has been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect them. Justice had been served, but more importantly, the truth had been revealed. Carol's years of abuse and manipulation were finally over, and my real life could finally begin." The weeks following the court hearing brought a strange mixture of relief and adjustment as I began building a life free from Carol's manipulation and abuse. Judge Martinez's ruling had been comprehensive and decisive, ordering immediate restitution of stolen funds and approving permanent guardianship arrangements that would protect my interests until I completed college. Dr. Hartman worked with financial advisors to restore my inheritance account and implement investment strategies that would ensure stable funding for my education and early career. The recovered money, combined with penalties and interest payments, totaled over $600,000 more than the original life insurance benefit due to court-ordered damages for financial abuse. "Reed, your father's sacrifice has finally been honored," Dr. Hartman explained as we reviewed the restored account statements. "This money will provide the educational opportunities and financial security he intended when he purchased that life insurance policy." Northwestern University welcomed me for the spring semester, providing academic counseling and support services designed for students who had overcome significant personal adversity. Dean Foster personally ensured that my transition to college life would be smooth despite the delayed start caused by my medical recovery and legal proceedings. Carol's criminal trial proceeded through federal court with efficiency that reflected the overwhelming evidence against her. Prosecutors charged her with mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit financial abuse. The systematic nature of her crimes and the military connection made her case a priority for federal authorities. Your mother will likely serve between 18 months and 3 years in federal prison, Jennifer Walsh informed me during our final legal meeting. The plea agreement includes full restitution, forfeiture of any remaining assets, purchased with stolen funds, and prohibition from any future contact with you without court supervision. Madison faced separate charges for her knowing participation in spending stolen inheritance money. Her social media accounts were suspended when followers learned about her role in defrauding a military survivor, and her influencer career effectively ended. She accepted a plea agreement that included 2 years of probation, community service, and restitution payments. Reed, your sister has asked if she can contact you to apologize, Jennifer mentioned during our meeting. The court requires your permission for any family contact during their probation period. I considered the request carefully before declining. Madison had 18 years to treat me like a brother. She chose to treat me like an obstacle to her lifestyle instead. I don't need her apology. I need her absence. Uncle Frank became a regular presence in my life, expressing deep regret about unknowingly enabling Carol's theft and working to rebuild family relationships that had been poisoned by her manipulation. He helped me understand more about my father's character and military service, sharing stories and photographs that Carol had hidden from me. Your dad was the most principled man I've ever known, Frank told me during one of our weekend visits. He joined the military because he wanted to serve something bigger than himself, and he bought that life insurance policy because he wanted to protect his family even if he couldn't come home. Dr. Hartman's role in my life evolved from emergency guardian to chosen father figure. His commitment to my welfare extended far beyond legal obligations, and I began understanding what healthy parental relationships were supposed to feel like. He attended parent weekends at Northwestern, helped me navigate career decisions, and provided emotional support during difficult moments. Reed, I want you to understand that becoming your guardian was the most meaningful decision I've made since your father's death, Dr. Hartman told me during my first semester at college. Honoring my promise to David and watching you succeed has given my life purpose I never expected. My college experience at Northwestern exceeded every expectation I had developed during high school. Free from financial stress and family drama, I focused entirely on academic achievement and personal growth. My professors recognized my work ethic and analytical abilities, encouraging me to consider law school and public service careers. Reed, you have the kind of perspective and determination that could make a real difference in protecting vulnerable people, advised Professor Sarah Mitchell, who taught my constitutional law course. Consider focusing your legal career on family advocacy or government service, where you can use your experience to help others. During my sophomore year, I established the David Thompson Memorial Scholarship Fund to help military children who had lost parents in combat. The scholarship provided educational support and legal advocacy for young people facing family exploitation or financial abuse. Dr. Hartman served as the fund's advisor, and Uncle Frank contributed construction services to build the program's administrative infrastructure. This scholarship represents your father's values and your own commitment to service, Dr. Hartman observed, as we reviewed applications from deserving military children. David would be proud that his sacrifice continues protecting families decades after his death. My academic achievements at Northwestern opened opportunities for summer internships with legal aid organizations and government agencies focused on family protection services. Working with other abuse survivors gave me perspective on my own experience and reinforced my commitment to legal advocacy. By my senior year, I had been accepted to several prestigious law schools and offered positions with organizations dedicated to protecting vulnerable children and families. The path forward felt clear. I would use my legal education and personal experience to prevent other young people from suffering the kind of systematic abuse I had endured. Reed, You've transformed personal tragedy into professional purpose, Dean Foster commented during my graduation ceremony. Your resilience and commitment to service exemplify the kind of leadership our society needs. 5 years after the accident that nearly ended my life, I returned to the cemetery where my father was buried. Dr. Hartman accompanied me as we placed flowers on David Thompson's grave and reflected on the journey from abandonment to achievement. Dad, I finally understand what you were trying to provide when you bought that life insurance policy. I spoke quietly to the headstone. You weren't just giving me money for college. You were giving me the foundation to build a meaningful life dedicated to helping others. Dr. Hartman stood quietly beside me, his presence representing the love and protection my father had hoped someone would provide if he couldn't return from military service. Reed, your father's greatest victory wasn't his military service or his sacrifice for his country. His greatest victory was raising a son who would honor his values even when facing the worst kind of betrayal. As we walked back to the car, I thought about the accident that had changed everything about my life. The crash that nearly killed me had actually saved me from years of continued abuse and manipulation. Carol's abandonment at the hospital had led to protection, justice, and opportunities I never could have imagined. Dr. Hartman, thank you for keeping your promise to my father. Thank you for showing me what real family looks like. Reed, thank you for giving me the honor of being part of your success. Watching you overcome betrayal and build a life dedicated to protecting others has been the greatest privilege of my career. Today, as a successful attorney specializing in family advocacy and military survivor rights, I help other young people navigate the legal system and protect their inheritance from exploitation. My practice focuses on providing free legal services to military children and abuse survivors, ensuring that others don't face the kind of systematic betrayal I experienced. The accident that nearly ended my life at 18 actually began the best chapter of my story. Sometimes, the most devastating experiences contain the seeds of your greatest achievements. Dr. Hartman remains my closest advisor and chosen family member. We spend holidays together, and he continues providing guidance as I build my career and consider starting a family of my own. The relationship we built through tragedy has become the foundation for everything good in my adult life. Carol completed her federal prison sentence and now lives in a small apartment in another state, working minimum wage jobs to pay restitution. We have had no contact since the trial, and I have no desire to change that arrangement. Some relationships cannot be repaired, and some forgiveness cannot be earned. Madison moved to California and works in retail management, her social media ambitions permanently derailed by the scandal of stealing from her brother's military inheritance. She has made no attempt to contact me, which suits both of us perfectly. The money my father died protecting has funded my education, my law practice's startup costs, and the scholarship program that helps other military children. Every dollar is used purposefully and gratefully, honoring the sacrifice he made to ensure my future. Looking back, I realize that surviving the accident was only the beginning of my real survival story. The greater challenge was surviving the revelation of my family's betrayal and building a meaningful life from the wreckage of their deception. But I did survive, and I thrived, and now I help others do the same. That's the greatest tribute I can offer to my father's memory and Dr. Hartman's loyalty. Have you ever experienced a moment when something terrible actually led to something wonderful in your life? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes our worst experiences become the foundation for our greatest achievements. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more true stories about overcoming family betrayal and finding your real strength. Share this with someone who might need to hear that survival and success are possible even after devastating betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that your past doesn't define your future, your courage does.